Ukraine's Armed Forces General Staff Update, October 12, 2023. Key takeaways. Fighting remains active in the east and south as Russia continues artillery and air strikes. Ukrainian forces repelled multiple attacks. Russia is shelling settlements along several axes, including Siversky and Sloboshansky. Ukraine maintains control of strategic Lyman and is defending against counterattacks. Intense clashes continue around Bakhmut and Avdiivka as Russia tries to gain ground. Ukraine repelled assaults. Along the Kherson axis, Russia shelled liberated areas like Kherson City. Ukraine is on the offensive on the Zaporizhia axis. East Ukraine. Fighting is ongoing as Russia attempts to retaliate for its losses around Lyman. Ukraine repelled 4 attacks near Sinkivka and 8 near Ivanivka along the Kupiansk axis. 15 settlements were struck by Russian artillery. On the Lyman axis, Ukrainian defenders repelled assaults near Makiivka and Serebryansky. Over 10 settlements were under fire. South Ukraine. On the Kherson axis, Russia shelled Kherson City and other liberated settlements. Ukraine continues its push on the Zaporizhia axis, where over 20 settlements were struck. The Bakhmut and Avdiivka areas continue to see heavy fighting as Russian troops attempt advances. Ukraine repelled around 17 attacks across the two axes. Air and artillery strikes hit multiple settlements in the Donetsk region. Ukrainian forces are holding the line against repeated Russian assaults along the front lines in the east and south. Ukraine's counteroffensive operations continue. Key developments to monitor are the battles for Bakhmut and progress on the Zaporizhia axis. The Institute for the Study of War Russian Offensive Campaign Assessment. Russian forces launched a major offensive around Avdiivka Donetsk Oblast on October 10. Russian troops attacked northwest, west, and south of Avdiivka using armored vehicles, helicopters, and heavy artillery. The attacks came from multiple directions simultaneously. Avdiivka's military chief described Russian assaults with air support along 10 to 12 axes around the city. Ukrainian observers called it a major attack with unusually numerous armored vehicles. This increased use of armor and aircraft, plus persistent coordinated ground assaults, indicates a significant Russian offensive rather than localized attacks to pin down Ukrainian troops. While the Institute cannot yet determine the full objectives and likely outcome, it is revising its earlier assessment that saw only limited attacks around Avdiivka. This operation appears intended as a broader offensive push. The Institute for the Study of War key takeaways today. Russian forces have not achieved major gains near Avdiivka as of October 12. They are unlikely to immediately encircle Ukrainian forces in the city. Footage indicates Russia has likely lost a battalion tactical group's worth of armored vehicles in attacks around Avdiivka. Russian media is likely exaggerating success in Avdiivka despite military failures or slow progress. Ukrainian counteroffensives continued near Bakhmut and western Zaporizhia, with reported advances on October 12. A Russian commander advocated freezing front lines to rotate exhausted mobilized troops with fresh contractors and resume offenses later. Overnight drone strikes hit port infrastructure in the south and infrastructure in Kharkiv. Russia conducted offensive operations near Kupiansk, Svatov Kremina, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Donetsk City, Zaporizhia, and gained ground in some areas. Russia claims recruiting over 357,000 military personnel since January 1. Russian authorities continue religious persecution in occupied Ukraine, trying to erase Ukrainian identity. In summary, Russia faces setbacks around Avdiivka but continues offenses elsewhere. Meanwhile, Ukraine makes some gains in counteroffensives. Drone and artillery strikes across Ukraine continue as Russia recruits more soldiers. Reporting from Ukraine Update. Russia launched a major offensive in the Donetsk region, sending a large column of tanks and armored vehicles towards Ukrainian positions near Krasnohorivka. However, Ukrainian forces were prepared and destroyed many Russian vehicles with mines. Fighting continues around the settlement Tarakhan and rail lines, though Russia has stopped using heavy armor and reduced the size of its assault groups after taking heavy losses. The situation remains unclear. In the southern part of Donetsk, Russia sent multiple columns from Vodian towards Sivern. Much of the equipment was destroyed, but Russia took some ground. Ukraine says no strategically important positions have been lost so far, and they are preparing counterattacks. Russia lost over 100 tanks and armored vehicles yesterday, according to Ukraine. Ukraine Matters Update. Russia launched a major attack on Bakhmut and the Donetsk region, committing significant forces including tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, and troops. Initial Russian assaults were repelled by Ukraine. Ukraine reports destroying over 90 Russian infantry fighting vehicles and over 30 tanks in one day of fighting near Bakhmut. Heavy casualties inflicted on Russian forces. Russia attacked from multiple directions near Bakhmut, trying to encircle the city, but the initial surprise attack was held off by Ukraine. Reinforcements are arriving to bolster Ukraine's defenses. Russia is also attacking along the northern front near Chernihiv, but with inexperienced troops recently deployed. Analysts question Russia's strategy of spreading forces thin. No major Ukrainian advances reported near Kherson. Ukraine may be preserving forces and waiting for additional Western capabilities like F-16s. Russia may believe Ukraine is exhausted and unable to counterattack, prompting this Russian offensive. But early results are poor for Russia. Fighting continues near Bakhmut, but unlikely Russia can achieve a major breakthrough after the initial assault was repelled. Ukraine remains in a strong defensive position. Jake Bro update. Russia's military performance in Ukraine has been poor, likely due to corruption, outdated tactics, logistics, and miscalculating Ukraine's resolve. Ukraine adapted better to the realities of the war. The fate of loose nuclear weapons is a concern if Russia fragments politically. China likely desires resources in eastern Russia and is waiting to see how the West responds in Ukraine before making moves on Taiwan. Zelensky's decision to stand and fight was a turning point that rallied Ukraine.